the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am, as always, your ever humble host, Michael Boldea, and it's good to be with you once again. This has become a habit, I guess. We meet once a week, we talk a little bit. Some of you agree, some of you disagree. But as long as we agree that Christ is King, Christ is Lord, and that there is no other way to the Father but by Him, we can have disagreements regarding pretty much anything else, whether politically, geopolitically, whether pineapple should go on pizza. I, for one, am a yes vote. Some people really have an opinion on it, but then again, this is what makes us unique individuals. For the sake of posterity, today is May 1st. Wow, this year's flying by, isn't it? May 1st, the year of our Lord 2025. It has been 100 days since the big orange man has taken office, and depending on who you listen to, depending on which voices you lend your ear to, it's either been the best 100 days or the worst 100 days in human history. I'm somewhere in the middle. It hasn't been the best. It hasn't been the worst. I think some of the decisions that are being made, especially regarding the whole, China tariff thing, are going to cause pain, but they are necessary. I don't believe we could continue in this form and fashion and still have a working government in 10 years. And if you don't have a working government, then all the things that we take for granted every day, like electricity and roads and everything else, including people who are retired, Social Security, or whatever else you want to, point to, those would go away as well. Again, we don't have to agree, but we're beginning to see that some nations and certain leaders of some nations only respond to a show of force. I know, toxic masculinity. We need to do away with masculinity. That's what's destroying the human race. No, masculinity is perfectly fine. Masculinity is biblical. Just not in, the females among us. I know. See, there you go. Now all the typists are going to start typing, he hates women. I don't. I don't hate anybody. I have my opinions regarding feminism. I think that if the world survives, which biblically it won't, but if it were to, historians would look back on the last 50 years or so and pinpoint the decline of civilization to, among other things, this push that women shouldn't have children, shouldn't get married, they should be boss babes. And now you have nations scrambling, offering money to individuals just to have children because, yeah, the population or repopulation rate is what it is. I was thinking about something this morning, and you may find it odd, but yes, I've read Aristotle and Plato and all the Greek philosophers. At a certain point in my maturing, as it were, I really got into philosophy. And this morning I remembered a quote by Aristotle. And I think it went something like, at his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst. And for some reason, I remembered that quote. There's a lot of things that Aristotle said that are worthy of contemplation. This is not even in his top 10, but for some reason it stuck with me. And I wanted to discuss a broader picture idea because we're seeing a lot of what we might deem as judicial activism taking place all over the country. We're going to get into a couple of the stories that are recent, the last few days. There was a judge here in Wisconsin, of all places. By the way, pretty dreary in Wisconsin today. It's raining. I am, however, grateful to be in the old homestead. I brewed my own cup of coffee and it's sitting by my side, steaming away. But yeah, it's a gloomy day. And that's neither here nor there. I'm sure that some people somewhere have it worse than we here in Wisconsin because there's still places that are getting snow. But we are each focused on our own personal struggles. And my struggle is trying to make it to the house from the car without being soaking wet. This happened, I think it was, yeah, this past week. It hasn't even been a week because we probably would have talked about it last week. But a judge in Wisconsin, one Hannah Dugan, she's a Milwaukee County Circuit judge, allegedly, because you have to use the word allegedly until somebody is sentenced, intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject being somebody that was in her court with the victims of said individual there to testify. So it's not as though this happened in a vacuum. And the reason that I want to focus on a couple of these stories today is because I've always wondered. It's I never doubted it, but I've always wondered how uh, civil authority, average individuals, could come to the point of just civil unrest. I know that you're thinking to yourself, what do you mean? We saw it back in 2016, 2020. People were burning down cities. Those were microcosms. Those were isolated incidents. But I think that the internal revolution that my grandfather foresaw and a couple of other people foresaw, that will be a broad scale event. It won't be isolated to major cities. It won't be isolated to just a certain demographic. I think that it will be throughout the nation. It'll be chaos and chaotic. And I've always wondered how could people's sense of justice and how could their following the law become so jaded that they would take it upon themselves to foment violence or to do violence, because it doesn't matter to me which political side of the aisle you're on, although there's a couple things happening where you're sitting there going, these people, at least, they may not be as moral as the other side, but they're not hindering morality. They're not punishing morality. They're not demonizing morality, and they're not criminalizing morality. So there's that to be said. I ran across this article, and this is the feel-good article for me of the week. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I know you remember her. Nice gal, or nice lady. I know. Why do you call them gals? It's just a term of phrase. It's a term of endearment. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm sure that she can bench press as much as I can. That's not the argument. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders just signed a bill to provide $2 million to pro-life pregnancy centers. And again, whatever side of the aisle you land on, you have to admit that this is a net positive. It's not going to Planned Parenthood. It's not going to abortion mills. It's not encouraging young women to murder their children as though there were no repercussions or as though they won't be emotionally scarred for the rest of their lives. $2 million of Arkansas's budget has been set aside in state funds to support pro life pregnancy centers, as several states and activists across the United States have begun to see providing money to such organizations as an essential part of the pro life movement. And I applaud this wholeheartedly. I think churches should have been the spearhead when it came to this, because if we believe that life is sacred, if we believe that life is sacrosanct, then we should do our utmost to protect it. We should do our utmost to facilitate the continuity of a life in the womb, even if that means helping out the single mother that needs food, that needs housing, whatever they need in order to bring the pregnancy to term, in order to keep their child or give it up for adoption. I have no problem with adoption. My wife is of a certain age. I'm of a certain age. I think we're past the diaper season of our lives, unless God does an Abraham, and we find ourselves with a newborn in my 50s. But we have actively discussed adoption. We've talked about bringing another life into our family. I think our daughters would benefit much from having a little brother or another little sister. And given that we are of a certain age, like I said, barring God's sense of humor coming to the fore, we've discussed this at length. And it's one of those possibilities that we're looking into. So we can't say that we're set against abortion while at the same time not doing anything to facilitate the continuity of life. Every single believer, I'm sorry, I don't care what denomination you belong to, I don't care what church you go to, every single believer should be pro-life. I think that any church, any pastor, any denomination that preaches that abortion is an option shouldn't call itself a church anymore. That's just my opinion. Like I said, we're allowed to have differing opinions. I know that I know you're getting ready to type, the angry ladies, the cat moms. What do you mean? It's my body, my choice. Well, yeah, it was your choice until you had another human being living in your body. Then one of the two is getting murdered if you decide to go that way. It is what it is. You can't call it what it's not. It is a premeditated murder of a human life. So take that with as you will. Now, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed House Bill 1202 into law last week, one of several pieces of legislation that she approved. The bill passed with no opposition in both the Republican-controlled Arkansas House of Representatives and the Republican-controlled state Senate. The legislation spans more than 40 pages and includes several appropriations for fiscal year 2025 and 2026, included in the bill is $2 million for pregnancy help organization grants. The measure defines pregnancy help organization as a nonprofit. Listen to this, because I see that's the devil is very good at giving organizations names, at giving projects names that do the exact opposite of what the name implies. Planned Parenthood isn't. Planned Parenthood is the termination of the possibility of parenthood. But it sounds good to the ear, doesn't it? Well, yeah, everybody wants, Planned Parenthood. No, it's murder. It's codified murder. So it's not Planned Parenthood, but the measure defines a pregnancy help organization as a nonprofit that seeks to provide a range of services to individuals facing an unintended pregnancy with the intention of encouraging pregnant women to give birth to their unborn children. I'm sorry, Planned Parenthood doesn't qualify. So it's not apples and apples, kids. It's apples and oranges. Examples of organizations eligible for the grants include crisis pregnancy centers, maternity homes, adoption agencies, and social service agencies that provide prenatal care and other maternity health care and nutrition services. How can you not applaud this? How can you say that this, oh, this is wrong? They're doing a horrible job. This is a net positive. I don't care how much you hate the big orange man. And by the way, I know that the newest thing is, well, he wants to make himself Pope. Or Lindsey, the gentleman Graham, tweeted something. I think it was tongue in cheek. Come on. Honestly, if we're going to go down that road now and insist that Trump is vying for the papacy, we need to get a hobby. Start knitting cat sweaters, I guess. The legislation defines a pregnancy help organization is one that doesn't offer or refer women, listen, one that doesn't offer or refer women for surgical or chemical abortions. There you go. Something worth applauding. Some good news in this week of news that is, so-so. Now, back to what is happening. And they're coming out of the woodwork, man. These activist judges everywhere. The one that got clipped, by clipped, I mean arrested, was here in Wisconsin. And the article says thusly. Federal agents on Friday arrested a U.S. judge. It was this past week, but a day after the program, for allegedly shielding an undocumented migrant, escalating a struggle between the White House and courts over El Presidente, Donald Trump's hardline deportation policies. Hannah Dugan, a Milwaukee County Circuit judge, allegedly intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject, whom agents were intending to detain at her courthouse. FBI Director Kash Patel said in a post on X, she was arrested on charges of obstruction. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since, but the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public. Tell me that he's wrong. He's not. She facilitated this man's escape from her courthouse, tried to block the ICE agents from arresting him. And again, whether you believe that nations should have borders, whether you believe that someone can come into the country illegally, the nation's laws are as they are. So this woman was arrested, but apparently all the other judges throughout the land haven't really been paying attention, because there's 1, 2, 3 articles of judges trying to circumvent federal law. Florida, and this isn't Florida. You're thinking to yourself, Florida, pretty even-keeled people. Well, not everybody. Florida federal judge orders police to stop enforcing state immigration law. If you're asking yourself, how can this happen? Apparently, these individuals believe that they have the authority to obstruct anything and everything they deem not illegal. Because technically this is legal. It's within the framework of the legal system. They just don't like it. And so, hey, why not? Police in Florida have been ordered to stop enforcing immigration law in that state, a federal judge ruled this week. U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams ruled that an order blocking police from enforcing state immigration law applies to all local authorities. According to Fox News, Williams also told attorneys for the state during a hearing in Miami on Tuesday that she planned to issue a preliminary injunction against a statute that makes it a misdemeanor for undocumented migrants to enter Florida by eluding immigration officials. So one individual in a robe gets to dictate to the entire state what laws they should and shouldn't follow. The ruling came in spite of Florida Attorney General James Utmeyer telling local police in his state that they did not have to follow her original order. Williams called Utmeyer's dismissal offensive. No, madam, you're offensive. Your decision is offensive. The American people are seeing this. And the more this goes on, the less respect the average citizen will have for the rule of law. The less respect the average citizen will have for justice. And as Aristotle said, separated from law and justice, man is the worst. If you do not have law, if you do not have justice, and what this is in the eyes of a lot of people is the absence of justice. There's another one which personally I find more offensive and more egregious because it was referring to one individual who's demonstrably guilty of doing what they were accused of doing, yet the judge ordered a suspect behind a firebombing of a Missouri Tesla. You know what? It doesn't matter if it was a Nissan, a Tesla, a Hyundai. You still firebombed a car. You didn't look through the window to see if anybody was in there. You did something malicious and criminal. But the judge ordered a suspect behind the firebombing of Missouri Tesla released from federal custody. And when you hear the reason behind it, you understand how respect for law and respect for justice is being stripped away in the mind of the average citizen. And again, the broader picture is this: when there is no respect for the law, when there is no expectation of justice, then all you have is chaos. And this is, personally, I believe, these are the first steps to how this nation becomes so volatile as to spark civil unrest nationwide. Because thus far, it's the other side that has been violent. Our side, and by our side, I mean, the average people that go to work, that have jobs, that have families, that don't want to tussle in the streets, that don't super glue themselves to the highway because you're using gas. Well, what options do people have left? Bunch of people went out and bought Teslas because they were electric. So these numbskulls wouldn't burn their cars, and now they're burning their cars anyway because Elon Musk owns Tesla. We got to do away with them. What, are we going back to horse and carriage? Is that the remedy? I'm sure the Amish would be excited. Imagine having a carriage building company in Pennsylvania right now. They're licking their lips, chomping at the bit. Let's all go back to horse and carriage. And this is why I believe there's going to be a continued pushback on everything that this administration does, because people in general will take comfort and ease of life over doing the right thing. I don't think we've seen the beginning of the pushback of what the Department of Health is currently doing, the banning of the food dyes and stuff. I mean, they're demonstrably bad for you. You can see it. You have 10, 12-year-olds coming in at 300 pounds, huffing and puffing because they had to walk from the car to the classroom. There's entire schools that have to buy all new furniture because the kids don't fit behind the desks anymore. And causation and correlation are two different things, but at some point you have to acknowledge the reality that back in the 60s and 70s, you didn't see a lot of chunky kids. And this is coming from a kid that was a chunky kid. You want to know why? Because when we first got to America, I wasn't. I have pictures of myself when I was 9 years old, and I was a beanpole. I was skinny to the point of being skeletal. After we got to America, my grandmother discovered the Price Club. It was this chain of stores in California, membership stores, sort of like a Costco. So if you belong to a Costco, the Price Club was the first iteration of the Costco. And at the Costco, my grandmother discovered all kinds of pre-made, pre-packaged things like egg rolls, believe it or not, that you had to buy in very large quantities. And she didn't know better. She didn't know what food dyes were. She didn't know what preservatives were. She's like, okay, it's easy. So I cook for the children and it's easy. So she'd take a bag of 5 pounds of egg rolls. She'd deep fry them, and that was pretty much lunch on a given day. It's not, I didn't get fat by accident. Looking back, in hindsight, having accumulated the knowledge that I've accumulated throughout my life, I understand the why of it. But a lot of people are so addicted to the convenience that they see their children just growing in pant sizes every couple of weeks. And still, they won't stop feeding them the stuff that they know is making them fat because it's just too convenient. There you go, little Charlie. There's a box of Captain Crunch or Fruit Loops or Apple Jacks. My favorite were the Captain Crunch, I must admit. To each his own. I know, because there's no kid, okay, at least a normal child, a child that isn't going to grow up being a psychopath that said they preferred grape nuts. Okay, you can, somebody should do a study. If any child between the age of 6 and 13 said they preferred grape nuts, look at what they grew up to be, and I guarantee you it was probably a psychopath. Nobody liked the grape nuts. We all liked the sugary cereal. And you know what? There was no measuring bowl. We had these big bowls in the house. You pour out as much cereal as it'll fit in. You throw in some government milk because the neighbors used to bring us cheese and milk, and yummy sugary treats. And it was all well and good while my metabolism was able to sustain the influx of sugar and calories. But then, by the age of 18, Mikey had a little punch. So there's going to be, you have no idea. If you think the pushback to what has been happening thus far has been surreal, when they begin to actively do away with the things that are slowly killing people, that's when you're going to see true wrath, true anger. There are people addicted to, what is it, Coke, Pepsi, Mountain Dew. And once you start, and I understand that there's an argument to be made for, government forcing you to eat healthy or being heavy-handed. There are other nations in this world, believe it or not, I know, we're America, everybody should be America. Well, yeah, there's other nations in this world that have already banned all these chemicals and all these dyes. Europe has banned the chemicals and dyes that Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to ban in America because they understood the negative impact they have. I think because people are addicted to convenience, the backlash to this is going to be worse than anything else. Same thing for all the Chinese stuff that comes in on containers, the plastic stuff, the hummingbird feeders, whatever. Uh, People are so addicted to convenience that that's the only thing they're concerned about. And once you make things less convenient, their natural reaction will be anger. So I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. I think this administration has 2 years to do what it needs to do, what it wants to do, because come the midterm elections, there's going to be a lot of angry people with sugar withdrawal, a lot of angry people whose Fruit Loops don't look like they're a rainbow because you can't use, and again, you can use carrot juice and they'll dye the poison that you're eating just as well, but it's more expensive. So just a thought. Anyway, back to this, because you're sitting there scratching your head and going, okay, so you can commit criminal acts, acts of vandalism, acts that are worthy of prison, and just because you belong to a certain subset of individuals, the law doesn't apply to you. A federal judge ordered that the suspect behind the firebombing of a Tesla dealership in Kansas City, Missouri, be released from federal custody ahead of his upcoming court date. U.S. Magistrate Judge Jessica Hedges agreed that Owen McIntyre, 19, a student at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, should be released after McIntyre's lawyers argued he be released, noting that he has no criminal record and that he has strong ties to his community in Missouri. McIntyre's lawyers, however, also argued that he be released, noting his medical and mental health needs. What are those, you might ask? Well, McIntyre has reportedly been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is likely caused by all the chemicals in the food. I'm just saying. I know I'm sounding like one of these homeschooler moms now, aren't I? But the evidence is kind of there. You can't deny the reality of what you see with your own eyes and go, oh, it's just a coincidence. It's not. But it doesn't end there. ADHD, depression, and gender dysphoria, wouldn't you know it? According to court records. Gender dysphoria, for those of you that aren't hip to the new lingo, is he thinks he's a girl, pretty much. Breitbart News' Amy Furr reported that McIntyre has been accused of firebombing the Kansas City Tesla dealership with Molotov cocktails, and that he is facing federal charges, which include a single count of unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device and one count of malicious damage by fire of any property used in interstate commerce. According to an affidavit filed in support of the federal criminal complaint, an officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department in the vicinity observed smoke coming from a gray Cybertruck parked in the Tesla Center parking lot. The officer also observed an unbroken suspected incendiary device near the burning Cybertruck. Anyway, to cut this story short, the judge said that this individual needs to be set free so they can continue their transitioning phase, because that would put undue mental stress on this young man, even though he was within his faculties, whatever those might be, when he did what he did. So, couple that with the next article. I know you're thinking to yourself, how many more? Oh, quite a few. A judge has blocked Border Patrol from arresting suspected illegal aliens without warrants. And all of these things build upon each other. All of these things serve to erode people's faith in justice. Some of us saw the light a long time ago. Equal protection under the law, dead and gone. Equal justice under the law, dead and gone. The thing that we're seeing now is that this new administration is kind of trying to balance it out, which I for one, agree with. Because if this were not the case, then we would have what is happening in India. In India, the police have arrested Christians who were violently assaulted by a Hindu mob in church. I'm going to repeat that because you're thinking to yourself, huh? But aren't the Christians the victims? Well, not according to the New Delhi police, because India has an anti-conversion law. And because of that anti-conversion law, and there's no way for me to prove it, but I would wager heavily that had this election gone differently, there would be states that would actively pursue said anti-conversion laws in the US as well. It's happening in Ireland, it's happening in England. India's arresting Christians for getting beat up because you should have known better than to call yourself a Christian. You deserved it. A Christian charged under India's anti-conversion law after Hindu nationalists attacked the church is seeking anticipatory bail from the Supreme Court of India. Rajesh Sharma said his plea for anticipatory bail was rejected in Chhattisgarh, state's lower and high courts. Sharma and the others were booked. Listen to this. Because we're only looking at one side of the coin and not realizing what could have been. Rajesh Sharma said that his plea was denied. Sharma and the others were booked after a mob of 70 to 100 hardline Hindus, led by members of the Hindu nationalist Bajrang Dal Cut. I guess the Bajrang Dal is one of their Hindu denominations. I don't know. Not big on Hindu culture. I have an aversion to curry. I don't like the smell or the way it makes my intestines feel, so never looked into it. But they cut the electrical power of the 120-member church in Raipur and attacked them during their March 9th worship service. The mob was accompanied by a few policemen, and they attacked in the presence of police who stood there as mere spectators, as they were very few in number. Yes, because that's the reason. Not because, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, go do what you need to do. So 70 to 100 hardline Hindus cut the power of the church and attacked the people in mass. The Hindu mob shouted slogans like "Praise Lord Rama." Indeed. Rama? Like the noodle? No, I kid. Don't come after me, even though if you happen to be a Hindu Indian that comes after me, I could probably smell you from a mile away. Just saying, the curry is strong. So, anyway. Get rid of those carrying out conversions, including derogatory words in Hindi not included in these translations. Vandalizing cars and two-wheelers belonging to church members, the mob struck the vehicles with church chairs, broke surveillance cameras, and then assaulted 4 Christians who sustained injuries, including 2 women. They really tried very hard to break open the church door. They damaged the walls supporting the door, attempting to get inside. Vipin Lawrence, junior pastor and son of Pastor Lawrence, told the news. If they would have succeeded, many Christians would have been assaulted and wounded besides the entire infrastructure inside the church that would have gotten damaged. The mob assaulted the Christians as some members of the congregation came out into the church hall to speak to them. The Hindu men beat the Christian men, and Hindu women attacked the Christian women. That it's the segregation. Why didn't the men start beating up the women? Because that's true equality. They hit us with chairs, long wooden sticks, fists, shoes, and slippers. Sometimes you read accounts of what happened to Stephen, where the people were so enraged that they dragged him outside the city and stoned him to death. And some people retreat to the mindset that, oh, we're past that. We're so civilized now that something like this could never happen. They were beating them with slippers. I mean, the sticks and the chairs and the fists, I understand. But how angry do you have to be to take a slipper off your foot and start beating somebody with it? One of them was wearing something on his hand that was sharp. Vipin Lawrence said, "Someone hit me on the head with a wooden stick and there was darkness before my eyes. I guess he fainted. I did not know where I was standing. A church member pulled me out of the mob and the police took us inside the church to prevent further injuries. Abhikesh Samson was assaulted and attacked with a sharp object. He was unsure if it was a knife or a sharp plastic object. He sustained a deep cut below his chest near a rib. The mob beat a 45-year-old woman repeatedly with footwear. A 24-year-old young woman was manhandled and sustained a muscle pull after she was yanked by her arm and assaulted to the point that it left her bleeding. We don't resort to violent means and did not retaliate," Pastor Lawrence said. And up to this point, in these United States, this has been the mindset of the average citizen. We don't resort to violent means and do not retaliate. That can't be said for the other side. I'm sorry, I don't care where you land politically. One side is more prone to violence and bursts of outrage than the other. That's just the reality. But if we continue to see that there is no justice under the law that we're all supposed to be accountable to, I think that people's reserves of patience will run dry eventually. Again, broader picture. All of these cases are somehow isolated or somewhat isolated, but when you take them in the aggregate, you see that there is an erosion of law, there is an erosion of justice. Depending on where you land politically, the judge will usher you through her back door to keep you from getting arrested. And all of these things will build up. And it's like a dam holding back water that is continually being poked at and holes are being drilled into it. Eventually, that dam will give way. Eventually, it will not be able to hold. He added that the mob was still attacking even after police reinforcements arrived. Eventually, the officers were able to rescue all church members, including many who had secured themselves inside the church hall. The mob shattered car windshields, damaged cameras, wash basins. They go through the list of everything that was damaged. To add insult to an injury, it's the Christians that got arrested. Because how dare you? Again, anti-conversion law, but it's the law. These people were inside their own church. They weren't actively street preaching. They weren't on some corner with some sign. But until anyone who opposes them is utterly eradicated, the other side is not content with half measures. And that's another thing that you need to understand. It doesn't matter how deeply certain pastors and evangelists bow to the mob. More will always be expected of them. So might as well have the dignity to stand. Might as well have the dignity to call light, light, and darkness, darkness. Might as well have the dignity to call sin what it is. Because far too many individuals calling themselves pastors and evangelists are kowtowing to what is demonstrably sin and perversion. And still, in the eyes of the godless, they're not doing enough. Well, you're supposed to convince other Christians to, be out in the street waving rainbow flags. How dare you? See, because that's what happens. You can never compromise enough with the darkness until you become darkness. That's a lesson that much of the American church needs to learn before it's too late. So the latest, which was yesterday, is that United States District Court Judge Jennifer Thurston, appointed to the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of California by El Presidente Jose Robinette Biden, is blocking Border Patrol agents across most of California from arresting suspected illegal aliens unless they have a warrant for their arrest. This week, Thurston issued a preliminary injunction that will prevent Border Patrol agents in California's Eastern District, the largest judicial district in the state, from carrying out arrests of suspected illegal aliens without a warrant and halting such arrests unless agents have a reasonable suspicion that the suspect is an illegal alien. Now, who gets to define a reasonable suspicion? It's not the agent, because if you're in the field, if you are an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent, you can kind of tell who's American and who isn't. You've encountered enough people to have a good gauge. But it's not the Border Patrol agent that gets to determine what reasonable suspicion is. Indeed, the evidence before the court is that Border Patrol agents under DHS authority engaged in conduct that violated well-established constitutional rights, Thurston wrote. Border Patrol is enjoined from conducting detentive stops in the district unless pre-stop the detaining agent has reasonable suspicion that the person to be stopped is a non-citizen who is present within the United States in violation of U.S. immigration law. Look, this present administration understood the scrutiny they would be under. They understood that they had to walk on eggshells to a certain extent. This is why the only martyr that they've been able to uncover so far is this Kilmar Abrego Garcia guy who was taken to El Salvador, who is an illegal immigrant, who is demonstrably or was a gang member. And currently, news has come out that his wife filed a second protective order in 2020, saying that he made murder threats against her and that her kids are afraid. So if this is the best you can do as far as an example to see the evils of this administration, you kind of fallen short. And I mean, There's people out with signs of this guy, bring Kilmar home, and wrongfully held in Trump's overseas ICE jail. Well, no, you're illegal. A gang member who has a history of violence, and he's been painted as a Maryland man, which he isn't. Look, the fact that you've been in a country illegally and have never been caught doesn't make you a citizen of that country. So the newest revelation, as far as the martyr du jour for the Democrat Party, is that the wife, Jennifer Vasquez, sought the protective order of the court on August 3rd, 2020, to bar Abrego Garcia from her house in Temple Hills, Maryland. She told the District Court of Maryland thusly, I then went to the car, found the phone, was able to call 911. I tried to return inside, but he locked all doors. After 5 minutes waiting for the police, he opened the door, told me to give me the keys. Police came and he acted violent with him. Broke my phone in front of the officer. Well, you know, the toxic masculinity. This is not the first time, she said. It has been a couple of occasions. He's taken my phone and my car. I'm left without anything to be able to call anyone. I have photos of all the bruises he left on my body. In my house, and again, her English was broken when she gave her statement. I'm trying to unbreak it as much as possible while keeping faithful to the text. In my house, he broke the TV, my son's tablet, my car windshield, phones. Me, my kids are afraid now. He tricked me and slapped me in the face, threatened me. I also have a recording that he told his ex-mother-in-law that if he kills me, no one can do anything to him. Yes, indeed, a saint for the ages. Huh? So again, this administration knows they're looking for any reason. The problem I'm having is that these activist judges are eroding any remnants of hope or faith or trust in the justice system that the average citizen may have been clinging to. And that, dear friends, is a recipe for disaster. If this continues unchecked, this will facilitate enough anger and animus and resentment and bitterness in the average citizen that when something sparks off, it's not going to be limited or constrained to certain big cities or certain demographics anymore. See, they've gotten away with what they've gotten away with because the other side hasn't fought back. At some point, they will. And when that happens, then what has been foretold regarding internal strife, civil unrest, internal revolution, if you will become the present, not some future revelation. So again, as I like to end every week, remember who you are, remember who you serve. Your hope does not come from men. It does not come from politicians. It doesn't come from administrations. Your hope comes from God. And so I see the world descending into chaos, not just America, but the world. Because every nation is facing the same issues currently. People have gotten used to a certain level of lifestyle. They've gotten used to a certain level of convenience. And they want to maintain that, if not elevated. And even the idea of having to, I don't know, tighten their belts or perhaps cook a meal from scratch once in a blue moon is so anathema to them that they would rather burn it all down. So keep your eyes on Jesus. He is the only hope that you and I have. And thankfully, when we place our hope in Him, it is well placed. We know what the book says about the last days. I don't believe that we are in the tribulation, as some have said, but I believe here and there we're starting to see the birth pangs. We're starting to see the contractions. And people are beside themselves, not knowing what to do, yanking their hair out of their skulls just from the contractions alone. Imagine how they'll react when it's no longer birth pangs, but the actual thing itself. Look, if our reaction to what we're seeing currently, especially in America, is abject terror or fear or despondency, we don't understand how bad it's going to get. I'm trying to be as honest and forthright with you as I possibly can. If you think this is the worst, given enough time, you'll look back on this time and go, wow, that wasn't really that bad. Because we know what the days ahead will be like. And not one man, not one government, not one nation can stand against the will of God. This has been foreseen. It has been foretold. It's in the book. And we know that Jesus himself said that the world will pass away, but his words will not. Every dot and tittle will come to pass. And so, all we can do is stand firm in our faith in Christ, knowing that not only can he make a way, but that he will make a way for those who are his. And with that, I thank you for listening. Lord willing, we'll be with you again next week. Until then, I'm sure that Gino has one or two things to say, as he always does. And as such, I will hand it over to him. Gino, are you there?
Yep. Thank you, Mike, so much. I want to go to Matthew 5:11. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And persecution is happening in many parts of the world, China and other countries. In England, where we were last month, if you go near an abortion clinic and you put up a sign, just a sign, opposing the abortion going on in that building, abortions rather, you can get arrested. And there's a lot of hostility against the faith. But God says you're blessed when you are persecuted. First of all, the church in America has to stand up and be strong and be vigilant and contend for the faith in a greater level. They have to stand in the gap, like Isaiah says, because even though we're in a period right now where God said a couple years ago when I was in Romania, after there'd be a time of reform, Mike is spelling out that we are seeing the birth pangs in America of not only a hostility towards the things of God. When you have in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 4 Democratic leaders that want to award a gal from a strip club, an award across the country. the hostility against arresting illegal immigrants, the internal division we're seeing in America. It's all coming to pass as God showed Dimitri Duduman. Go to handyhelp.com if you can and read the dreams and visions that God gave Dimitri, especially the warning for America. There would be an internal insurrection, and that's in Jeremiah 51, 8 through 15. Just read those verses. And what's been happening in America now is you're starting to see more divisional lines being drawn between, as Mike said, the liberals, those on the left that want to rise up and, basically call, as they will, make a shout, they'll call for insurrection in greater levels. And again, the church has to be more vigilant in standing against the things that are evil. Also, today's the National Day of Prayer. Thank the Lord that we can pray all over America because we have a great God, a great King, and a lot to be thankful for because, as Mike said, hard times are coming and the winds of persecution are not that far off. Thank you for listening to The Light of Truth.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.
They are all leaving and turning aside.